48 hours of my son not responding to a text was high alert. And we came home and we found him. And he was sitting in my brother's apartment with one day if I could paint a picture, he had invited somebody from the street in and all her stuff was there, paraphernalia everywhere. And he looked at us and said, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I said, what does that mean? Are you an addict? Do you need help? And he said, yes. And that was over 2 years ago.
Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between. Hello. Today, my guest is Elana Epstein. She is a Reiki practitioner and a spiritual guide in Vancouver, BC. Her greatest passion lies in helping individuals find their deepest place of connection to themselves and their relationship to life. As a mother of someone in addiction recovery, Elana spends much of her time supporting other mothers. Elana is passionate about doing whatever she can to end the stigma around addiction and promote awareness around this disease. A guide and mentor for moms supporting their loved one through addiction, Elana creates an environment that is safe, intuitive, and inspiring. And I am so honored to have her with me today. Hi, Elana. Welcome. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Krista. It's so good to do this with you. I am very excited to be here.
Awesome. I wanted to start by talking about, we are both moms of a child who's gone through an addiction and is in recovery. And I just want to speak a little bit to that. What made you want to start telling your story?
So really, honestly, from the first moment that we really found out that Noah was in the throes of addiction, that he had a disease, there was no thought. It was just a complete go forward. You've been called. This is happening to your family. And I think everything I had been doing up until that point was really leading me to be able to have a voice and feel the necessity of being able to do something. You know, we live in a city in Vancouver where we've lost a ton of people to addiction. Specifically in the Jewish community, we've lost a lot of young boys in the past 5 or 6 years. And there's a lot of stigma and there's not a lot of talk about it. And there's it's all pushed underground. And the only people that talk about it are the people whose kids have died. And I just immediately, with Noah's permission, felt like if this is happening, I got to use my voice. I have to be one thread to share what I can so that any other family that comes after us knows they're not alone, because we for sure felt alone.
Yeah, 100%. You do feel alone, especially when you're in the thick of it and you can see your child struggling, you know. It's hard to reach out to other people. And that stigma that you were speaking of, that's huge. I want you to speak a little bit on the mom guilt too, because that's what comes up from when we talk about stigma. It's like, as a mom, this has got to be the most heart-wrenching thing you can watch your child do.
Oh, I think we all go through these years as moms and we tell ourselves these stories of, I couldn't go through that, and God forbid that would happen to me. And we never remember the reality that anything can happen to any of us, that anything is possible, and that we are here to do as conscientious and connected a job as we can as mothers, but we don't know what's coming, and we definitely feel like all the good things they do is maybe because of what we've done, and then the bad things they do, we immediately assume responsibility, because to love our children and from my perspective of believing that they were on loan to me, that they chose me to bring them into this world, it didn't mean they chose me to know what was right for them, but I assumed that I should know what was right for them. And so when we realized Noah was sick, of course, immediately I went back in my mind in history and looked at all the things I didn't do and all the things I did do when I was in the confusion and the denial of addiction. I didn't know it was addiction. So of course I
Yeah.
did the best I could. He was our first child. I was watching society. I was watching other mothers. I was doing what everybody was doing, and I thought it was good enough, So when I
Yeah.
learned Noah was an addict, of course I went right back and did all that self-hatred and that self-loathing and that look, I thought I knew what I was doing in the world, and I didn't know anything. And as much as I thought I was being the best mom I could be, I definitely immediately went into I was the worst mom I could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't stay there very long. I
That's a
didn't
good
stay
thing.
there very long because of the community that we have, because of the wisdom I participated in learning about, because of the meetings and all the things maybe you and I will talk about. But it took a while for me to accept the reality that I didn't cause it, to really accept the reality that I didn't cause it. That took a long time. And there are
Mm-hmm.
moments when I still can be pulled back into that thread. So my conscious connection with truth is a day-to-day practice because of that, because I can't afford to be going backwards. I can only be in this moment and do everything I can right here and right now, and somehow cultivate faith in what comes. And I
Mm-hmm.
see those moms that blame themselves, and I'm not responsible for Noah's disease any more than I am for his successes now and the successes of my other children. And I know that. And that is a profound sense of freedom, actually.
I could not agree with you more. I think that was one of the biggest things I learned. Probably the most profound thing I learned is that I wasn't responsible for not only the disease, but I wasn't responsible for all his success either. I had taken on this role, and I mean this, it's a natural thing, but you give yourself so much power as a mother, like you're just in control of everyone's emotions and everyone's actions and ideas, and yeah, the minute that something doesn't go right, you beat the crap out of yourself, and it becomes this vicious cycle that you can stay in if you don't know where to find help. I
Right.
want to ask you a little bit about some of the, I heard you say I watched an interview with you before, and with you and your husband and Noah. And I heard you say that you didn't have this in your family. Like you didn't come from this background. This wasn't a familiar place for you. So how did you navigate the signs and symptoms and what come up for you guys?
And that's the one of the biggest pieces here about why I want to speak, because I don't believe everybody comes into this community of addiction having had experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know what difference it would have made had we had this experience, because I know a lot of people who had the experience and still deeply struggled, and we're still
Mm-hmm.
deeply in that realm of being mystified about what's going on. So we had asked, when we saw Noah in high school kind of struggling with some things that just kind of felt like that some things don't seem okay. There's nothing really terribly wrong, but I just wondered if some of the signs we were seeing were problematic, and some of the stuff at school that was going on was problematic. And everybody we talked to assured us he's totally fine. He's wonderful. He's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. It's just a phase he's going through. It's just weed. Don't worry about it. Kids do stupid things. All that teenage, really the reality that we all hear growing up is boys are dumb,
Yeah.
boys are stupid, they do too much. Everyone smokes weed, so we want to hear that. We wanted to hear that everything was okay. I wanted to believe that we didn't have a problem, so I did. Fast forward to the 20s, and Noah was still living at home. And again, it was like there are things that his brothers weren't doing. And even though he was the oldest, once the younger brothers were kind of catching up to the teenage years, it kind of held that light into, see, maybe there is something wrong. He
Mm-hmm.
was not as connected to the family as his brothers were, as he always had been. He had, at first jumped to get out and leave dinner early and go to like another friend's birthday. Like that kid had more friends than I knew, and I'm sure some of them were fabricated for sure. Just another excuse to leave.
Yeah.
And we had nowhere to go. We had nobody to talk to. Again, like I said, anybody in the community who had struggled, their kids had died. And so I certainly wasn't asking them for help. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody else we did ask for help kind of lent us the the slogan, he's okay, he's going to grow out of it. And so we believed that. So we didn't know there was a big problem. We had asked him after he moved out and he had come home a couple times. I had asked him, do you have a problem with Coke? And it just was listening to the wisdom of the divine that I listened to all the time. Ask him. He was mad. Of course, Mom, don't be ridiculous. His friend group did an intervention because, of course, there was a problem with Coke. And we found out about the intervention. And he lied again. I'm fine. It's under control. I can do this. I know it's just Coke. I can stop. Of course, we believed him again. He wasn't living at home. We didn't see the daily signs. He was able to maintain work and relationships and deep friends. By the time we found him, it was just literally through the grace of my inspiration and my mother higher power saying, your kid is in trouble. You need to go find him now. And we did. I left. We were in Whistler for the weekend. We drove home. He was meant to be staying at my brother's. He wasn't answering us, which was very unusual. He always maintained daily contact. He kind of knew exactly what to do to throw me off his course.
Yeah.
What would Mom need to hear? It would reassure her that I'm okay. So she'd believe it. And I bought every single one. And this time he wasn't responding. And I knew 48 hours of my son not responding to a text was high alert. And we came home and we found him. And he was sitting in my brother's apartment with one day if I could paint a picture, he had invited somebody from the street in and all her stuff was there, paraphernalia everywhere. And he looked at us and said, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I said, what does that mean? Are you an addict? Do you need help? And he said, yes. And that was over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Call to the door, call to the interventionist, talk to Connor, meet him within 24 hours, 48 hours, Noah was in treatment.
Yeah.
And only because I was finally ready to see, and Noah was in his final last 24 hours of knowing he needed help too, before his words, or I would have ended up in jail or dead. Those are his words. And I actually believe him now.
Oh, for sure. And when I listen to you talk about that, I'm sure other mothers out there listening to this is like, you're telling my story. And when I listen to you speak, it's almost word for word you just buy into that, You want to believe so much that you buy into whatever they're telling you. And my son became an expert, skilled at throwing me off, at making excuses. And I just ate it up because that deep belief within you wants so badly that it's okay that he's telling the truth. If you could go back now and you were looking at those signs, and there's a mom listening who might be going through that very beginning steps, what would you suggest that parents can do or just to watch out for?
So I always tell someone, if you think there's a problem, you need to listen to that instinct. Because I didn't think there were problems with my other boys who also liked to smoke weed, right? We live in Vancouver. But I never for a second had a doubt that something they were doing was not okay. So listening to that instinct and, really staying slow and trying to talk to someone who hopefully there's more education out there and more schools will be equipped with the right kind of counselors that have the training to recognize the signs. And that's, a whole other conversation. But hopefully things are different today than they were 10 years ago. That now if a mom reached out and said, I think we have a problem, they would listen to that mom and not bypass because he's a loving guy who plays saxophone and has a nice girlfriend, right? That they would listen to the behind the scenes. There's a book called, I'm sure you've read it, An Addict in the Family.
No, I haven't yet. I've read so much. I
know. There's no end to what we could read. An Addict in the Family. I'm forgetting the author right now, but I'm sure you'll do your homework and put it up for your
I will. I'll put the link. I'll look it up.
Honestly, everybody with a teenager should read this book because it makes the signs very clear and it gives you awareness to what the differences are and what to pay attention to so that you're not alone. And that can, that can armor you to trust your instincts a little bit more and then give you the confidence to reach out to, even if it's even if it's a crisis line, even if it's an addictions counselor, my message to all the moms is you go first. You don't wait for your son or daughter to say, I have a problem. You don't believe them when they're masterful at covering up the problem. If you still have those instincts, you go first. You ask for help. Get to a NAR-non meeting. Listen to the other parents. You will get validated that you're not crazy, and you will be opening yourself up to finding solutions. The sooner we remember that if there is a problem of addiction as a disease, we can have better conversations without doing all the things I did that you probably did. Arguing, checking pockets and drawers and bags, and just looking for the proof, but being angry about it and blaming my son instead of working with him to get him to see maybe there was a problem, as if my punitive measures was going to stop my son from the path of addiction. What we know now is we have no control. We have no power.
Yeah.
But we can have boundaries and conversations and be persistent. And I had none of those tools. And most mothers don't, even the ones that come from addiction, because it's a whole different ballgame when it was your sibling or your parent. Now it's your child. And we know that. So read the books, ask the questions, and find somebody to reach out to. You, me, someone in your community, the mom that was silent, that you knew she was wondering, how did that go for her? And that's why I'm here to be a voice, because I know that people are hiding in the shadows. And what we know about addiction is it grows in the shadows. It grows in isolation. And recovery grows in community. We know that. So I need to be that first line of community in a place where there hasn't been any, and it's already rippled out. So I'm grateful, I'm grateful for that, for that ability to be that voice. And if you want to be a part of finding solutions, they will come. If you're in denial, it's going to make it harder for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. It's so important. I mean, that's why I want to do this too, is just to speak out and start talking about this stuff. And it's just, when you're in it, sometimes you can't see it, You can't see whatever the saying is, the tree for the forest, or whatever, the forest for the tree.
Yeah.
And once you are aware, though, once you do educate yourself and you start reading that material and you start learning different language, a whole new world opens up for you. And I encourage parents too to not wait until your child is in a situation like this. Like, this stuff should be, it should be a book that every parent gets when their kid enters junior high. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I know that's not the way it is, unfortunately. And so just
not yet.
Out here talking about it. Yet. Exactly.
Not yet. I mean, Krista, I live in a city, Vancouver, where everyone, I believe, feels that addiction is on the downtown east side, right? That's the addict. It's the homeless guy on the downtown east side. It's the guy or girl with mental health issues. It's not the average typical kid who can hold down a good job and maintain a relationship that comes from a good family. That's not the addict in our midst that people see. And so we don't realize that those our children can become those people on the downtown east side if we don't intervene. That if it's an addiction that the kids themselves don't realize they have, this is where it goes. It grows. We can't cure addiction, but we can arrest addiction, right? We can pause addiction from growing. And so we have an immense amount of work to do. And I believe that, one of the tenets of Judaism is that we're doing work in our generation for frequencies and energy and growth and becoming that we may not see in our lifetime, right? Just like the farmer plants the tree. He may not see the fruit of the tree, but his children or his grandchildren might. That's what you and I are doing now. We're in that early stage of planting seeds of awareness, because addiction is everywhere, and it's not going to go away, because look at the mental health crisis in our world. It's connected. Look at the challenges that our youth are facing, and drugs is the solution that they have found to make themselves feel better, to numb the pain, to mask the fear. And we're all guilty of that in our own lives. Just some of us are addicts and some of us are not. And so the truth is that addiction is one of those things that, I couldn't imagine. Actually, I couldn't have imagined either. And honestly, I don't want anyone to have to go through this, but the blessings that have come from this, the powerful surge of who I know I am and what I'm here to be in the world that has come from this, has come from my son and my husband and our family, our widened family. We were called. We've just been called now. No one knows he's been called. We've been called. And we didn't need, the darkest place this could go for us to wake up and say, we have a problem. We're using it from now, the brightest light. Again, it grows in isolation. It stigma grows in the darkness. Shame as a mom grows in the darkness and the isolation. You heal it in sharing. And when one person speaks, another one is willing to say, me too, that changes everything.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think for people out there who are staying silent and really have that shame and guilt attached to them, that just knowing there is such freedom and relief in speaking up and asking for help, even if you cannot change what your situation is as a parent, just reaching out for that help. I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. I started going to Al-Anon here in Alberta, and after the fact, I just completely changed as a person. I grew exponentially when I dove into my own recovery, because I think what people don't realize is that even if you don't come from addiction or alcoholism or whatever, there is a certain amount of recovery that you need as well, not just the person who has, is in active addiction. It opened up a different world for me, different language. I saw things I had never seen in myself before. Makes you really have to look at yourself and say, hey, where can I improve myself? And what kind of behaviors and patterns have I been displaying? Not that it's contributed, but where can I change and be better in my life, you know? And that was huge. I think it's just personal growth work times 1,000.
Agreed 100%. And, I didn't know actually when we started this journey and Noah went, it's okay to say the treatment center that he went to. Yeah. It's a beautiful one. So if you're in Vancouver and you need help, call the last door. We dove into the family meetings and we dove into Narnon, like you said. And I really thought I was doing all of that so that I could learn about addiction and what I could do to be the best mom I could be for my child. I had no idea it was going to ripple out to show me my own illness, my own insanity, and inspire me to become a far better mother than I've ever been in my life. Wife, sister, daughter, friend, worker, teacher, guide, all of it. I was bypassing so many parts of my own character traits that were a part of the problem. And they were contributing to how Noah was able to use drugs for longer and let the disease grow. That I'm willing to take responsibility for it because I didn't know he had ADHD. So I didn't know that when I rescued him at school with his leftover lunch at home and his soccer shoes at home, that I was enabling him to not take responsibility for, executive functioning and all the things he needed to take responsibility for that he is now. And I didn't have to do those things for my next kids. And so only later did I see that that's how I was a part of the problem. I believed what he was telling me. And I think he was believing it too. Like he says he didn't think he had a problem until he did. He also was believing some of the lies. He wasn't only sharing the lies to get us off his back. He was telling himself he was okay when part of him knew he wasn't. And he knows that. And so he knows what those early signs are. And that's why he wants to speak up to the youth to say, don't fool yourself. These things aren't normal. They aren't typical. Just like I want to speak to the moms and you want to speak to the moms. And addiction has become my favorite topic, my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Recovery is just my favorite thing to participate in. And
Yeah.
we were just in Japan talking to a
Mm-hmm.
community there. I will go as far and wide as I can. I will speak to anybody that comes into my midst, because I agree with you. It offers an awakened participation in life that I think a lot of us, it just passes us by because we could
Mm-hmm.
be complacent. We
Yeah.
with addiction, we can't be. So I don't want people to be afraid of acknowledging there is pain and suffering, because through that pain and suffering, that's where the healing and the light and the connection comes from. And I've always
Mm-hmm.
believed in that. And I was always in that, realm of work. And when Noah went to the door that night, I was willing to turn my back on all my spiritual growth, my 2 decades of journeying. And I heard that quiet, still voice, the same one that told me my son was in trouble, that said, well, you can give all this up, but nothing's going to change the reality that your son has the disease of addiction. So you can do this all by yourself with no spiritual connection, or you can do
Mm-hmm.
this with spiritual connection and really get it and do this for everyone else and take this responsibly so that the next family can have a better time finding their way to healing. And I just dove in deeper. All the preparation was for that moment, Krista. And when I realized my son was sick, I went deeper, and I'm no longer
Mm-hmm.
bypassing. I'm now facing things head on,
Mm-hmm.
one day at a time, with so much courage and so much faith. Fear doesn't have a place in my life anymore. It shows up, but it doesn't stay, because the
Mm-hmm.
faith, right? Like,
Yeah. Ugh.
faith is like,
I mean,
it's that saying, I'm sure you
yeah.
know, because you work in this field too. Whether we are in, believing the fear or believing the faith, both of those ask us to believe in something that is not true yet.
Mm-hmm.
So which one will we believe? And where does faith have a place? And I couldn't have made it through this journey without that unwavering faith and knowing that even when my son didn't see it, even in his relapses and his turning away from his light, I knew it was an inevitable destination. I just had to trust in the journey, and we're on the journey now. And it is, of course, one day at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so true when you talk about a lot of the work and preparation that you do in your life. And sometimes you're going along and you don't know where it's going to lead you, or what you're thinking, well, what is my purpose in all of this? What is my purpose? And same thing. I had been on like a 15-year journey of healing myself and work. I come from a family of alcohol, an alcoholic father. And so I
Mm.
had a lot of my own programming, my own conditions and everything. And I had been on this journey for healing. And then when my son went through this, everything started to come full circle. I knew that
Mm.
just a part of me knew that this is what I was supposed to, this is what I was preparing for, right?
Right.
And you don't know it. And I had asked myself that question, like, I don't have a purpose. I don't know what I'm doing. And sometimes when you enter this realm, your purpose appears, And I'm so grateful. Like the gifts you say, yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And not just for myself, but an entire family, of healing, an entire family of healing, and generations as well. So so
Absolutely.
powerful.
It's
Yeah.
so powerful. And I mean, you
Yeah.
come to it from a place of having had this initiation earlier on,
Uh-huh.
but to step forward and be willing to do it for yourself through your son and the next generation, that's what I believe. And of course, everyone has to find their own beliefs in this
Yeah.
world with everything. But I I had that conversation with Noah early on. He's the first grandchild, and although there's no addiction in the family, there are certainly other things. And I had this conversation where I just said, like, I'm sorry, you inherited all this stuff and the darkness and the shadows that I
Uh-huh.
think they were too big for you to hold for sure on your own. And now you're alchemizing them on behalf of the next generation. And he's like, yeah, thanks. But yeah, I feel that too. Like, he was that, there's always one in the family that's willing
Yeah.
to say, okay, like, work through me. And I'm that person in my family as well. Like, work through me. What do you want to come out of
Uh-huh.
this? I'll be that voice. I'll be that beacon of light. And we can turn towards things and face them, or we can turn away from them and hide them. And I think I turned away from them in my own life for sure for years. Even as a
Uh-huh.
yoga teacher and spiritual guide and Reiki master, I was bypassing. This will pass. Just breathe. It's all okay. Like, I joke, I want to
Uh-huh.
tell all my yoga students, like, I want to refund you because did I do a service? But I
Yeah.
did, because the messages were the same. I just wasn't doing it
Yeah.
in my space until
Yeah.
Noah was willing to crack the ceiling and say, okay, we're here out in the open. This is our truth now. And everyone's responsible for their own selves. What do you
Yeah.
want to do with this layer? And I it's profound. I mean, it's a profound journey, and the triggers can show up. I just had one this weekend, but what I do with them is so different,
Uh-huh.
right? And knowing again and seeing the body holds the memory, the body holds the imprint. So we have to keep working on that as we separate from the crazy of addiction. We see what's left over. And like you, I'm seeing, what are the places I didn't tend to all of my life? What did I bury?
Uh-huh.
What do I want to come out and come into the light through this experience? And if we are willing to put that lens on it, the healing is endless,
Uh-huh.
profound.
Yeah. I'm doing a step 4 group right now, and when I first did the steps, I know everyone's like, "Oh." When I first did the steps, the full set of them, I get to step 4 and I'm like, hot damn, this should be taught in schools everywhere in the world. And not just, and this isn't just about step work and the 12 steps, because there's lots of ways to go through recovery and everything. And I want people to be aware of that but I think the principles behind those steps, aside from any spiritual or religious beliefs,
Yep.
the core principles of teaching people how to look inside themselves and identify their feelings and emotions and the behaviors and the patterns that they have. I mean, that's so profound in an adult, let alone if you could figure that out as a child and grow with that, Because like you said, you've
Agreed.
opened up a new dimension of yourself, and that enables you to do yoga or your Reiki practice in a completely different way. Same thing with me. It's like
Sure.
this, yeah, it's like opening up another dimension,
It
with
is.
yourself. It's
And
crazy.
and I think that those of us working in these fields of higher consciousness, or
Uh-huh.
inner child, and looking at yourself and the why of who you are and the why you do the things you do, the step work for me, I mean, at first, again, I thought I was doing them to get a grip on addiction and
Yeah.
get to know my son and all of that. The second year that I'm just finishing now was all about me. It was all about me. It
Uh-huh.
was, wow, why do I do those things? And what am I learning from those things? And what inner child wound am I holding? And
Uh-huh.
where did I feel some of those um, experiences as a child? Where was I out of control? Where were my parents not what I needed them to be, even though they were fabulous? And it is just that. It is that I started taking the step work into my um, one-on-one sessions with my
Uh-huh.
clients in their desire. I work with people desiring to get a deeper grasp on who they are and begin to be on a spiritual journey of awakening. And the questions are just, they're profound. And
Uh-huh.
if everybody remembers that they are not responsible for other people, that they can't control the outcomes of other people, that they are
Uh-huh.
being guided by a presence that can slow down their consciousness and listen to the wisdom and be willing to look at themselves without judgment, without
Yeah.
criticism, with acceptance, with
Uh-huh.
curiosity, so
Yeah.
that they can go forward and encourage others to do the same. One sentence in a profoundly shifting, loving environment can help other people be willing to look inside and stop blaming others, which is what our
Yeah.
addicts have to do, right? Is
Yeah.
I can't blame the system, my teacher, my first girlfriend, my
Mm-hmm.
mother. I have to take responsibility for where I let things get out of control. And I think these addicts in our midst are the most profound souls that are walking on this planet, showing us all how far off the mark we have gotten as a community, as a humanity. And I think they're the ones that are willing to say, people, you need to look at this, stop looking away, we're heading in a wrong direction. And they're the most, I mean, you've been in the rooms, those are the most loving, present beings I've ever talked to in my life, still today. It's astounding.
I can't even, I'm just smiling because I can't even tell you how true that is. I went to visit my son at the door. I had just never met such beautiful human beings in recovery. Those boys and men were some of the most sensitive, loving, grateful people I've ever met in my life. And I have said this before in other interviews and just on my own talking to people. It's like, I think they're some of the most open and sensitive souls walking this earth. And that's what makes them more susceptible. But like you said, it's a wake-up call for society. And if we all thought about substance abuse and the people who are going through it like that, what a different lens we would be looking through, you know? Even now, and the people in the recovery community for me, and Al-Anon spouses and parents that you meet, it's like you're just meeting some of the kindest souls who want to make a change and want to make a difference.
And, you know, you said a couple of things, and I want to make sure that anybody listening to this who may be a person that is coming to it the way I did without any prior knowledge or experience, that is in this shock of like, what happened? I also like judged, what did that family do? What happened over there? It's like, now I know we're maybe at the mercy of that kind of judgment is, we thought they were such a good, kind family. What happened? Clearly there must have been things that we didn't see. And, you know, and that's not true. My son has a disease. He has the disease of addiction, which can happen to any family. It does not discriminate. You don't have to have addiction in your family to have a child that is at risk for addiction. That's something I really want to be vocal around so that people can understand, if they're willing to learn about the truth of addiction, they may see it in a neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Another family member, a friend that comes home with your child. It doesn't have to be for your own family. This is a cultural, societal disease that we all need to take responsibility for. And I didn't know that before. I didn't either. Have known that. If not for my son, we all knew there's a problem in Vancouver, but nobody was really talking about it.
Yeah.
And what we know is that if our kids had a different disease, like now, you know, God forbid my son gets cancer, everybody would come with food, community. Yeah. What can I do? And there's no stigma, and there's no, you know, it's not in the dark shadows. And we need to bring the disease of addiction into that light of awareness. Like, where are the people? Who is showing up?
Yeah.
Be willing to talk about it. Ask the families going through it, what can you do? Because if they don't want support, they'll tell you. But more likely, they will accept support and ask, you know, and be grateful that you were willing. When someone asks me, how's Noah? Which is rare. You'd think like how are the kids? I get all the time, but the couple of people in the room that specifically want to know how Noah is, that says something, right?
Yeah.
Because those people don't want to talk about it because they don't think I want to talk about it. So I'm being vocal because I want people to know, if you have someone in your family or someone you're concerned about, or you do want to know what addiction looks like, come talk to me, because we all need to know this. This is not a little corner only for a certain DNA people in the world. The disease of addiction is everywhere, and it's going to continue to be.
Yeah. And there's no pamphlet and handout that when you go into a grocery store or a doctor's office or a dentist's office, you're not just pulling this stuff off the shelf to read about it. You know, it's hidden. You have to dig and find books. And only in the last probably 10 years has there been more and more written about addiction and how to handle it for parents, for just like, there's no guidebooks, you know? And so that's so important too. You know, when my son went into, I think I kind of snapped when we did an intervention with him, but it was like this light bulb went off and I had it Like I had had it with the secrecy, the lies, the not talking, the shame, the guilt. I was so full of, I was done.
Yeah.
And I told my son before he entered there too, I said, I'm done with this secrecy. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell your story. That's for you. But if someone asks me where you are and how we are as a family, you're damn right I'm going to be straight and honest with you because I'm so tired. I was so fed up with not even speaking my truth. Like I felt like
Right.
I didn't have a voice, and
Yeah.
let alone he couldn't have a voice, And so it was hard because there were people around us, our family. Oh, should we ask? Should we talk? They're hushing or they're not sure what to ask. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just an open book. So you want to know something? Ask me because it might be your kid or the neighbor's kid that needs this information. And
That's
so,
it.
yeah, I think you get to that point, but I hope that parents don't let it get so far that they are in a place where they don't know where to turn, right? Just
And
being vocal and asking, speaking up, it's okay.
it's so
You know?
okay. And I think everybody has their own personal journey. And I think unfortunately that this disease brings a lot of shame and a lot of unknown and a lot of confusion. And so I think it's very normal for people to take their time and get there a little bit later until they really do know what's going on themselves. And then, of course,
Yeah,
they have to, depending on their family culture, break through some of those barriers.
yeah,
And I said that to David, when we came back from Japan, and I'm sure you hear a lot of people saying to you, it's so good what you're doing, like good for you, using your voice and being out there. We really need it. And and I don't know, and like, wow, you're so strong. I don't know if you hear that. I get a lot of, oh,
I
you're
do.
so
Yeah,
strong,
a
like,
little bit. It's more and
right?
more.
Like
Yeah.
it's, and I just went, I'm going to quote a line from Noah's speech that night at King David when he said, someone asked about his, old friends, and he just said, this is my story. All the things that happened and all the people in it are part of my story. And I feel the same way. This is part of my story. My beautiful, gorgeous life with my beautiful, gorgeous children. This is part of it. One of my sons is an addict and he's
Mhm.
beautiful and he's incredible. And I want for him to be able to go forward to profoundly shift whatever he needs to in his world to be of service, and he is. But I want to show people that more love comes when you are willing to take the risk. More than educating people, I want to show people that are struggling with addiction what it looks like to speak. So maybe over there in the future, they can be more honest with their friends and their families and their communities, because we need as many people shining a light as possible. So I'm almost feeling like I go forward so I can show the moms who don't know how to yet what it
Mhm.
looks like, that it actually brings more love and more connection. I mean, hiding again in the shadows
Yeah.
is more fear-based, and it enables you from doing the next right thing for your child too. Because if it's all in secrecy, we're not doing what is right. And I'm sure you had to put boundaries in for your son. I did too. I
Yeah.
had to be a mom I never thought I could be with my son. And that just gave him a deeper awareness of what he had to do in the context of what kind of relationship he wanted with us. And
Mhm.
he was already taking risks to kill himself. I was no longer willing to participate in that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Oh, for
empowering, right?
sure. Yeah, it is super empowering. I mean, it's scary at the same time, but it really is empowering. And with a little support, you can navigate all those deep waters, right? And
Yeah. And
yeah, it's so, so important.
do you remember hearing, I don't know if you came to the family meetings, but, Connor at one point early on, I heard him say, what if things go right? And that's what most people don't bring initially to this journey. They
Yeah.
only imagine the worst case scenarios,
Yeah.
and they forget to hold that faith of things working out. And
Mhm.
maybe like you, because of my field of choice and my work, I never lost sight of what could go right. I never
Mhm.
lost sight. I kept that vision is so clear and always will be, no matter what my son does, because energy is a real reality in our life. And we're learning more and more about that. And science is explaining more and more about that. So what we think and what we project and what we
Mm-hmm.
work on creating more of, as long as we clear the pathways of our wounds from the past,
Yeah.
endless possibilities exist for every single addict.
Yeah.
And the sooner the parents get there, for sure, the more likely it is the kid will too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop speaking on behalf of that. Is like, we got to do what we can do. And all of us in our own corner, I don't expect every mom to speak up like you, but those that can do and those that can't,
Yeah.
don't, we speak on their behalf. And that's just beautiful too.
That's right. And even those moms that don't want to do this kind of work or whatever, there might come an opportunity where all you're doing is sitting beside another mother and holding her hand, and saying, you know what, it's going to be okay. Like, I've been there, or I have some resources for you.
Exactly.
Here's a name, here's so that's just so important. Yeah. And I hope you never stop talking about it because it's
I,
awesome.
I won't. I won't. I think I'm in many ways, Krista, I'm just getting started. I think I always knew that I was kind of this, I used the language, a conduit, a channel for the divine to come through me. I used to say it before every yoga class, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'll be here, but you work through me. I mean, it was a joke. I said it
Yeah.
every single time. And now what's changed is that I am that conduit and I am that channel, and I do know the divine is with me. But my wisdom of experience, my lived experience as a mom who loves her boy, my gorgeous addict, so profoundly, I'm coupled with that, right? The wisdom of experience and the wisdom of the divine in going forward and speaking my truth. And I'll go anywhere I'm invited to speak about this, because I'm in my most aligned self when I do. This is for sure the purpose that at this point in my life I've been given, like you.
Yeah. So beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. So what have you got going on now? What do you have, something you want to put out there, and what kind of stuff you got going on? Because I
So
know
what
you're Reiki, you do Reiki as well as
I do,
yoga and
Reiki.
spiritual stuff.
Yeah, I see people one-on-one in sessions to with an agenda of what they're trying to break free of in their life and what they're
Mhm.
trying to make more of, and how to enhance their relationships. Many of them are mothers, and they are realizing as well that they have to get out of the way, and they think they are the control of their child, and they think they know what is best for their children, and they realize they barely know what is best for them, and so they're arriving to
Yeah.
that place. So I have sessions that involve Reiki energy work and a lot of intuitive things that drop in, messages that are being delivered. And again, as well as that wisdom of what I know is upon us all. And I am working on participating in something in Vancouver through addiction that I'm
Mhm.
going to you have to keep quiet about things at some point.
Yeah.
Um, I've also toyed. I've been asked by many of them. I support a lot of moms in recovery
Mhm.
through Narnon and through the step work, and that is part of my service, and I will never ever stop doing that.
Mhm.
But I'm also, I believe, ready to take the step of doing a little bit of training so that I can work more professionally with people, with
Mhm.
families in that realm. I do have a social work background, but I'm just gonna up it a little bit so that it can be a little more current. And there may or may not be a book and a podcast in my future, because I've been downloading the inspiration of those things. Um, and I'm taking things really slowly and paying attention to what the whispers are. And I'm just really right now, each week is full of these conversations that teach and guide me, that allow me to teach and guide others. And I'm just deeply grateful. So we'll see what the next little immediate future brings. But for now,
Mhm.
weekly meetings and messages and guidance and connections and conversations. And I'm feeling deeply grateful for everything I'm learning and everything that's coming through me and that I get to share.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Do you do work online with clients as well? Like,
I
do you do
do.
virtual? Yeah. Okay,
I
good.
do. I
Yeah.
resisted that, and COVID was a good teacher for me. And then I
Yeah.
broke my leg in the spring. silly ski accident, and I had to not see my clients because I couldn't really maneuver much. And like, you know what? Again, it's a construct. If we tell ourselves that Zoom is no good and that you have to be in person, we're limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
The love and the wisdom comes through. We need to just get out of the way and stop telling ourselves we know what it's like. We don't. We know, like my engineer son tells me, all we know is we know nothing, mom. And he's right about that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like you and I are
Yeah.
having this beautiful conversation. And of course I
Yeah.
wish it was in person, but I feel it. I
Yeah.
feel your presence and love. It's astounding. So yeah, why limit, right? Why limit?
Yeah.
The space is just we only see 1% of the reality, and when we remember
That's
that,
right.
the teachings are far and so much wider than they can ever, whatever our mind can create, for sure.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you do the work you do. There's so many more people needed to do this work and to speak up. And I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that I got to know you through the last door. And I will put everything in the show notes so that people can get in contact with you and they can reach out for whatever resources and that book as well. I wrote it down. So um, is there any last things you want to add?
I just want to remind people to, take it really slowly, whatever they're working on in their lives, like slow it down. You don't have to know
Mm,
everything at once, one day at a time. Easy does it. All those slogans that may sound cliche, they profoundly enable you to go forward and um, create the life you're looking for and finding the answers to the solutions that are there. They're there. They're just waiting for you to find them. And so don't hesitate to reach out. If you have a question about addiction, if you're living in the Vancouver area or not, and you want to know where to go and what to do next, how to find an
okay.
R&on meeting, uh, you know, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
here, and I'm happy to share the thread of that. And I want to thank you for being this voice and this representation of what's coming through the portal you've created, because the right
Yeah.
people that need it are going to find it through you, and you're making it possible. You
Yeah.
are that conduit. And we need more of you. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So I want to say thank you for this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. And I just love having these conversations and I love the awareness about it and everything about it. So I am so grateful to have you on today. And I'm so grateful to listen to everything you had to share. Such words of wisdom. And I'm sure lots of people will get lots out of this. So thank you so much for joining me.
You are so welcome, and let's do it again. This was fun. I'm happy to. If you have a topic that specific to addiction that we
Yeah,
need to get out there, I'm happy to explore it with you. But I wish
I'd love
everybody
to.
and all your listeners reminding them, like, slow down and take good care of
Hmm.
yourselves. You're worth putting first. Like, you're worth
Yeah,
putting first. We have to model that so anybody that's struggling remembers they're worth putting themselves first too.
yeah, beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of today, Krista.
You too. Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.